Today, I want to answer 3 questions. What is risk? How effectively are you managing your risks? And what are some of the immediate things you can do to mitigate your risks? Now, imagine getting up every morning, getting to work. What's your objective? To get there on time. There are so many things that you consider, whether there's traffic, whether you're going to be pulled over by cops, whether or not your car will stop or not. These are all these considerations. Whether you do it consciously or subconsciously, they're there. Okay? But if you think of your business as a house of cards, okay? What is your objective for that house of cards? Is it to keep it the way it is? To manage it the way it is? Is it to grow it? What is your objective? And how would something, an event, an occurrence, stop you from achieving that objective? That is what risk is. Okay? When we talk about internal risks, we're talking about the risks that are within the organization, something that will stop you from achieving your objectives from within the organization. And it's very important to look at that, look at risk in that perspective, because if you don't have a sound structure internally, if you don't have that base to support yourself, it's very difficult to mitigate against risks that come from the outside, external risks. Those external risks being things like the KRA, interest rates, exchange rates. We all worry about these things, right? Terrorist attacks. Those are some of the things that we need to protect ourselves from. And by doing that, we need to ensure that we have a strong core within. That's why it's very important to have a look at your internal risks, to prioritize your risks, and to see how you can manage them. Okay? And it's also important that you know what sort of risks you're managing. Some of the key risks that we've identified that are of concern, the first one being financial and reputation. It all comes down to finance. At the end of the day, you're trying to make a profit. You're not here as a charity, an NGO, or a government organization. You're here to make money, right? So the key risk that you're protecting here is your financial risk, as well as your reputation, right? If you don't have a good reputation in the market, who's going to buy your services or your products? You'd rather go to your competitors, right? So how do you actually manage your risks? I think the first step is to have a management tool. This tool is known as your strategic risk assessment. So yes, we know about our risks, but how are you structuring yourself to identify those high-risk areas? As Josephat mentioned, we're all busy people. Our time is our money. So where are we spending the majority of our time, the majority of our resources? Rather than looking at everything as a whole and thinking that we can control everything, it's important to realize that we must focus more on our high-risk areas. And by having this management tool, your risk assessment, you're able to prioritize and categorize it in a formalized way. These are my risks. These are my controls. This is the risk rating, i.e., this is a high-risk area. I need to spend more time in this area. This is a low-risk area. It doesn't need a lot of my time. Okay? Another area to look at is your gap analysis, your internal controls, where you are and where you want to be, and what's stopping you from getting there. Family-owned businesses have a very unique structure at the top, especially at the board level. There's a lot more emotion involved in that board, as opposed to having someone that's not internally or emotionally invested in a company. It's important to get someone that's able to help you or advise you on what the best structure is to get your board in order so that you have that right tone at the top to help you manage your business and to make you manage it in an efficient and effective way. Your strategy. How many business owners or how many senior management members actually do day-to-day operations. Day-to-day operations like paying your casuals, like making sure that transport or your turn boys are working effectively in the transport sector, rather than looking at things that are more on a strategic level, looking at the bigger picture, how to grow your business, how to make things better. It's something to consider as well. Yeah? And if you're not able to do the strategic aspects of your business, if you're not able to handle the strategic aspects because you're so involved in your day-to-day activities, then clearly there needs to be some sort of control mechanism in place to help you strengthen that bottom base, yeah? So that you can be free to go and do those things. Okay? Other risks, fraud. Yeah? If anybody came to me and said, oh, I've never had fraud in my organization, they're either lying or they're in denial. Every organization, there is some sort of fraud that's involved. So how do you manage that fraud? Right? Another great tool to use is your fraud risk management tool. Thinking of ways of how to, first of all, prevent fraud, how to detect fraud if it happens, and what's your response? If once you've detected it, what's your response? Do you just let it go? Or do you do something about it? Okay? Your IT systems, another risk. There are many organizations that decide that they want to buy a system off the shelf because everybody else is doing it. Their competitors are doing it. But they don't realize that that system might not fit their business needs. So because they've spent so much money and energy on the system, they decide that they want to change their business to fit the system rather than the system fitting their business. And which one is more costly? Clearly trying to change your business, something that you've been doing over a number of years to fit a system that doesn't work for you. So the question then becomes, do you have someone that reviews the systems before you put them in place? And once you've put them in place, what are some of the risks involved in the system itself? Information is key. And if you're not safeguarding your information, it's very difficult to run a successful business. So what happens when that information is lost? Do you have a backup? Do you have a disaster recovery plan to help you get back onto your feet as soon as possible with the least amount of damage? And then finally, your finance function. How supportive are your finance function? At the end of the day, finance is not your core business. It's a part of the business that will help you with your core business. Are you helping your finance team build capacity? And in fact, it's not just your finance team, but it's also your entire organization. How much do you actually invest in training to help the people that are supposed to support you in making sure they're able to do the best of their abilities? Right? It's important to invest in your people, to train them, to give them the skills and knowledge so that when you're not there and you're sitting in this forum, they're able to actually run the business. And that's what success is measured by. Not by the fact that you have to be there all the time to make sure things are running, but to have the comfort knowing that even if you're not there, your organizations are still running. When I first joined Kpmg, one of my first clients was a manufacturing company. And at that time, they had a turnover of 500 million shillings. Today, they have a turnover of close to 4 billion shillings. When we went in our first year, the organization was a mess. There were so many areas in which we were, when we went in as their internal auditors, there were a lot of efficiencies that need to be put in place. There were a lot of controls that still needed to be in place. However, by year 4, they were in a position to sell 51% of their stake. In year 8, they've increased their efficiencies. They have better controls in place, and we're still their trusted advisors. We've done internal audits. We've done fraud investigations. We've done IT audits. We've done a number of things for them. And they are successful in what they do currently. So the question I ask to you is, do you want to grow? Do you want to be relevant? And if you do, we'll gladly help you take this to the next level.